good? Okay. Everybody's ready? You guys good? Okay down there? You ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Southbury Planning Commission to order. February 18th, 2025, room 205, 7 p.m. Would everybody join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Let's see, seating of alternates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, we don't need to. We're full house, okay. Okay. First item, election of officers. It's back to that time of year again.
I'd like to nominate Rich for chairman. I think you've done a wonderful job over the past, how many years?
It's been
This,
a few years. Yeah, it's been a few years.
few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
I
would-
respect the work you've done and always there, always do your research. I appreciate it.
Right.
Nominate Rich.
I'll second that.
3 seconds, you
Well,
guys. See that?
thank you. Wow. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I ask who made the second?
That was Ron.
I'd like to nominate Nancy if she'd still like to be vice chair, if that works. You're always on the, you're good for that, Nancy, down the team.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'd like to nominate Bob Harrison still for secretary, if he's,
Second?
Bob, you good with that?
Sure.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. We're good for
Go for another year.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Moving right along, unfinished business, continued site plan modification application 1411 Southford Road, Wheels Gas Station signage conversion, Citgo to mobile. The folks are here? Yep. Okay. We have pretty much everything we need, right? Except for,
If you'd like to give a brief presentation, you can just step right up
Yep.
here. I'll grab you on mic, just state your name and address.
kind of give us like your name, address, kind of a 30,000-foot overview of kind of what you're attempting to do. We kind of have an idea already, but just so we have it on record, and we'll kind of go from there. Oh, we can get one of these.
Hello? Is it on?
Should be.
Okay. My name's Steve Brescia. I'm with Scout Services. Address is 490 Quail Ridge Drive in Westmont, Illinois. Came in this morning, see you all for this. The project is just a refacing and rebranding of the existing gas station. So we've been working with you all to get your feedback to do, this is the standard, what we had originally proposed. That's being done for many of the other stations, but we need to fit it into your codes. So after the last meeting, we got some feedback. We were looking to modify the existing freestanding sign out front. We have reduced it to be the exact same size, using the same poles, reducing the lettering, taking out the illumination, so the only addition will be the LED price signs. We've provided some information that's the standard brightness that's similar to the ones I saw driving in here. So ideally that fits the code and standards at this time. We were looking to make some changes to the existing canopy on the outside. Our understanding is that no branding mobile signs based on the number of signs. So we will not do that. If that's not allowed, we'll remove that. Also, our understanding is that there's no LED lighting on the outside allowed, so we will remove that.
Okay.
Did have a question. The blue part of the canopies that we were looking to add with no words on them, just the mobile blue, that was also my understanding is not allowed. I did see the Citgo on Main has some sort of red diagonal, no wording. I don't know if that's in a different zone or something, but if the blue is no words on the canopy, if the code dictates that it needs to remain fully white, we will keep it white.
Do we have a picture of that?
Yeah.
It was included in their original, yeah. Robin's Scott.
Oh, the original, okay, 'cause I haven't seen the last two, I haven't seen that.
It's in the January
Yeah.
Okay, I
notes.
see that now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, yep.
So I was just looking for some clarification if the blue is completely off the table, or if that is something that is allowable for consideration.
yeah, what do you think?
So with respect to the blue, there's been some back and forth with the interpretation of the regulations. My apologies, I'm just stealing this. There's been some back and forth with respect to the interpretation of the regulations. If you look under definitions for signs, and that's really what drives the entire conversation around this, is determining what exactly is a sign. It's pretty expansive. The term, and I'll quote, "The term shall include every sign, billboard, illustration, insignia, logo, picture, icon, lettering, display, banner, pennant, flag, emblem, trademark, brand, figure, symbol, design, crest, seal, or other device, however made, displayed, painted, illuminated, supported, or attached, including any display representation, illustration, or insignia used to advertise or promote the interest of any business or any person or business or cause when placed in view of the general public, either located outdoors or located indoors." It would be the commission's interpretation of that regulation to include the coloring as falling under this regulation. If in turn this commission felt that the coloring fell under the definition for signage under, all of these various wordings and descriptions, then it would no longer fall under the approved signage because it would exceed the height allowed for signage. You have to be below the maximum height of the tenant space. And given this is a canopy, this is something we bump into a lot with respect to gas stations. The canopies are so high, they often exceed the height of the existing retail space that they're cohabitating essentially.
So it looks like it's not a go.
Well,
Do
I,
we-
No, go
No,
ahead.
my opinion would be, if Citgo does in fact have it, how did they get it? And I would think we would try to allow every station to have the same, I don't wanna start playing favorites that, somebody had it and somebody didn't.
Will it
Sitco was lower.
cause an issue if we allowed it from a paperwork point of view and all that approval, or no?
No.
Sitco was
Okay.
lower, right? Sitco was, the height was,
So it was the interpretation of the definition at the time of the SICO application. The definition wasn't as scrutinized as this has been, since we've gone through this now, it was kind of simpler to expand the view of the application with respect to how it aligned with the zoning regulations. Given we've done this a couple times, the definition of signs got implemented into this staff report, and as a result, we're having the discussion here.
Jordan?
Mhm.
You said that in addition to that, there would be some height restriction that we'd have to look at. So do we know how tall the canopy is and how much it exceeds the height restriction?
So if you no longer felt that the coloring was deemed a sign, then we're not having the discussion regarding
right.
signs having to adhere to that height limitation.
Okay.
I agree with Bob, I think it's,
But I think I would also clarify that it could only just be the coloring, no wording, no,
no lighting, nothing.
no.
That's precisely what was stipulated for Sitco when they recently went through this, not even rebranding, but brand improvement,
Yep.
visibility.
Sitco's just in the front? Or is it on the sides too?
The Sitco we're referring to is 56 Main Street
Yes,
South.
Yeah,
All they have on their canopy that was included in their previous application was the coloring, that red and gray
Yeah.
And that's
design
wrapped all the way
coloring
around?
wrapped around the entire canopy.
that was my
I could be wrong on the face that abuts the
Building.
business. That might have been removed, because I think they only called for 3, because that was unnecessary for their purposes. But, yeah, completely visible from the street.
Can I ask you a question? There's a mobile station on 188. What do they have?
The Sitco on Main Street was the first of its kind to have any embellishments on the canopy.
Okay.
And that's what was called out during the original application, was the idea that it should be cautioned against the Sitco application being allowed certain expansions or branding details to be added to their business, because it was in contrast to how all the other gas stations had been approved up until that point. So now we are experiencing that cause and effect.
So, right now, the only thing we're discussing is not new wording, nothing, just blue all the way around the canopy.
Right.
Not the height of the canopy, not,
Right.
thank you.
Okay.
And then the last part was the, identified as E to H, which was some of the pump wrapping and, blade signage underneath the canopy for the pumps. And I believe the feedback there was that that was allowable and okay.
So the feedback in the staff report was embellishments like that could also be construed to be signage. However, if the signage was part of a unified signage program for the site, then it could be expanded on or approved to allow for additional signage. What I would recommend is if this commission felt so inclined to approve item E through H or anything in addition, that the applicant come back with, and this can be conditional, but they come back with kind of a comprehensive list of all signage to be included and approved on that property to move forward as their unified signage plan if the commission felt approval was necessary.
Subject to staff approval?
And alignment with what was submitted here and making sure that no changes had occurred at any time.
We're talking about the pump wrappers, or?
Yep, item E through H of the staff report.
Okay. And that would be similar to what we received in our initial
Correct.
application?
I just see up to E.
The only reason I call out the need for a more unified signage plan is because it's kind of piecemealed throughout their original submission. And if we're going to be, if this commission is gonna be approving a unified sign plan, it should be much more clear and apparent exactly what's being approved moving forward.
Yeah.
So think like pump embellishments and things like that.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing we looked at for the other one.
That's pretty
Yeah.
consistent throughout Southbury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
E through H, everyone's comfortable with that? Okay, the blue,
I am.
blue on the canopy?
Yep.
Everyone's good with that?
Yep, I am.
All right, so that sounds good, blue on the canopy, and the E through H is fine. Obviously, no lighting under it, right?
Yeah,
That's out.
we're
Yep.
removing everything you said no
Yep,
to, so
okay,
that's
cool.
fine.
And I guess it makes sense, we'll just do like the final wrap, like Jordan was saying with the signage, and then we'll get it moved along for you.
Okay, and what does the final wrap mean?
So, we'll-
Specification, all signage specifications.
So like I said, I don't have a draft resolution for you tonight, but it's a pretty standard application where there's asks and allowances with respect to this. I'd be happy to draft something up and get it to this commission at the next meeting. But it would be conditional on the unified signage plan being submitted for item E through H and the canopy banner of the blue sign on the exterior.
that's what we're gonna need.
Okay, so you and I can work together on exactly.
We can absolutely
what-
work together.
What more than the plans we sent already that you need, and we'll do it.
It would just be a question of whether this commission was willing to make a decision tonight. Otherwise, the applicant would have to provide an extension of one more 35 days to meet the maximum.
And there, just to be clear too, there will be no new pictures or no new anything that we'll be providing. We've provided everything. We'll be filling out a different application for you or something.
So what I would really be getting, Steve, is a simplified PDF of
Okay.
exactly what you guys are being allowed to have. So item E through H clearly depicted on a simple PDF.
Okay.
As well as the freestanding sign, which you provided in a separate attachment, and the canopy banner. But instead of a, full 20-page PDF document where there's a lot of detail in there that isn't being allowed, we would kind of
Yeah.
truncate it
Sure,
to only have what's being allowed as your approved signage plan moving forward.
okay,
And we would work together to make sure that was received.
got it.
Motion to grant an extension?
Do you wanna grant the extension, or do you wanna?
You don't wanna
I would
go?
be comfortable with Jordan,
Approval?
you
Yes,
know, approval
extension
and-
for that, yeah.
Is is it possible, if you do an extension, does that mean we have to come back to the next meeting?
No.
You would
Or-
have to.
No.
or,
No.
If you approved everything?
Do you want an
Subject-
extension, or do you want to
subject.
get approval based on,
I think we can do an approval based on Jordan's review and
that's kind of what I was thinking
Administrative.
too.
I'm comfortable with that.
I'm
Everybody
comfortable
else
with that.
comfortable with that?
So you
So
have
I'll
to be
make that-
specific, though, that
Yeah,
exactly
so we'll
what
give
you
it-
need.
Follow
We'll
it.
make a vote, all right, so I'll make a motion to
That'd be great.
approve that. And we'll spell it out as in, the client will meet with Jordan and finalize the exact sign, canopy color, E through H specifics, and
PDF.
Yep, sorry, yep. And then we'll get that final for the meeting so I'll make a motion to approve it based on that. Anyone want to add to that motion?
3 contingencies you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that sound right to everybody?
Yes, it's an approval, though. I thought I heard you say at the end for the next meeting. We're not. this
No,
would
we're
be
not
an
going to,
approval.
I'm sorry, right, for not the next meeting, we'll approve it tonight.
Correct, okay, for the
So
approval.
based on those 3 options we need.
I would second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay.
Thank you very much.
All in
Really
favor?
appreciate it.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks for your help.
Abstentions? All right.
Safe travels.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good flight home.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can't believe you came that far. Wow.
Sorry, Steve, thank you.
We could have zoomed you in.
Next time.
All right,
Stay up
let's see here. All right, under new business, site plan modification application, 1200 Main Street South, Apple Real Estate, Inc., Mike DePompis, storage addition over existing foundation, 1,543 square feet. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good, good.
So we got health, like the last time we didn't have it, so we got
Yes.
that in, so kind of give us an update of where you're at, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Just basically, I was waiting to get approved based on the health department, which we received that recently, and I submitted it in with a new application. And kind of straightforward, we just want to build a storage area over existing foundation.
Anybody have any questions for Mike based on the last meeting? We had to obviously decline the last application and redone it, right, if I can remember right? Right.
Yeah, essentially resubmitted.
Submitted,
the exact
resubmitted.
application.
Does anyone have any questions or thoughts for Mike before we?
We've had requests about cleaning it up, about the mailbox, about the
Right.
outside storage, all that. Has all of that been accomplished?
The mailbox is removed, there's no outside storage, there's basically a couple storage units, which the commission, we had spoke last time, that we were gonna remove those once we finish the construction. We're gonna use them as a staging area to store our equipment, materials. And then once we finish the project, we were gonna remove them.
Okay. And the only thing being stored was inside the building, nothing outside, if I can remember right, that's what we're
Right.
talking, okay?
Yep. And the use of the building was for
Maintenance
maintenance
equipment.
equipment for use on the site.
Okay.
Yep.
So what do you think the time frame is for you to bang this building out?
I mean, this kind of weather right now, a few months, maybe could be 4 or 5 months.
So you'd start now in this weather, or spring?
Whenever I can.
Whenever
yeah.
you can, okay. All right,
We're getting a little break in the weather. We start yet.
okay. Do we want to put a time frame on that? We don't want to wait like a year, right? We want to make sure it gets done so it gets cleaned up quickly too.
Rich, I have one question.
Yeah.
Is there any relationship between the work that you're gonna be doing on site and any issues that could be caused with your current tenant that is actively occupying the space or will have to maneuver around the area while you're under construction? Is there any anticipated influence to them whatsoever?
It has not, actually, actually, it's not their area to, the roadway's clear, the roadway leading to the back, which they don't have any, they have, actually, no, it's actually not gonna be, because before, there's 3 garage doors, which, on a different area, so, yeah, it shouldn't interfere with them at all. If there is, I'm sure we could work it out, me and the tenant.
And there's gonna be no access to this unit from the interior of the building?
No, not at all. Totally separate.
Okay. Anybody, anything?
We got health department, right?
Mm-hmm. Alex, John, anything down that end?
No,
Anybody?
I just did, I didn't hear what Nancy said.
We have health department
Oh,
approval.
okay.
All right, I just
Were
wanna
the
make sure that we
concerns
get-
about egress addressed? Jordan, you had questions or
My
concerns?
concerns were related to the active tenant that
Oh,
occupies
okay,
the
not
building.
in and out of the.
Not necessarily egress, there's a lot of space in the rear, but if the active tenant was gonna be influenced on this in any capacity, we would probably wanna understand that and hear from them. But according to the applicant, there should be no influence in this respect.
Should we put a time frame on, kinda getting it done, or,
I don't think we can with the
No?
weather.
no, I'm not,
Well, the zoning permit that gets issued as a result of this has a 1-year timeline.
okay,
Okay.
1 year, okay,
You can make
fine.
And no signage, no additional signage, and no additional lighting, if I remember correctly, is that correct?
Right.
That's my understanding.
You couldn't even see anything that we're doing from the street or.
And it will be spotless and cleaned up when you're done, I mean, cause we're gonna, Jordan will have, we'll check it out and make
Oh,
sure
it
it's.
is now.
Okay.
It is now.
Okay, we wanna try to keep it
There's
that
been
way.
a lot of improvements made to the
Yep.
site,
Yeah,
but
there's
with
nothing-
respect to this application, we'll really want a clean slate
Right.
following the completion, and that's what this commission is
Yeah.
conditioned.
Yes,
The only thing that's on the property right now is 3 storage containers.
right,
Which we're gonna, as I said, we're gonna use those to put on material. Then afterwards, we're gonna remove them.
okay. All right,
Motion to approve.
I'll second the motion, any discussion? Nothing? All in favor for approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All set? What do you think, Jordan, you right? Okay, all right. Let's see. Under new business, lot line revision, 4 Old Farms Road, Transylvania Brook Estates, PDD, number 21.
You're all set, Mike,
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, he's the lot line?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm Andrew French. I live on 4 Old Farm Road in Southbury, off of 67. I also own 6 Old Farm Road. The properties are adjoining. And so I'm just trying to do a lot line revision before I sell the current residence I'm living in at 4 Old Farm Road. They both surround a protected plant area, as you can see on the map.
A protected,
And a protected plant area.
Nancy, if you recall, this is the PDD,
yes,
Pennsylvania Brook Estates.
yes, yes.
So I
protected
developed
area
the
was a
whole
pretty big area.
subdivision.
Yep.
And I've been maintaining the protected plant area with scheduled mowings. And now that I'm selling the other piece of property that's around it, and I'm moving to the other place, 6 Old Farm Road. I want to move the property back instead of on the side of the protected plant area. So I have easy access.
Conservation.
Is there enough setback?
So,
The application meets the setbacks. Application meets the frontage requirements.
Close to each other. That works.
It cuts everything pretty tight as far as the requirements, but all the requirements are met.
I believe it's only 1.5 or 0.15 acres of change in property.
Mhm.
So it's not a lot of property.
Giving up or gaining?
Both,
No,
both
moving.
sides of it.
He's on both sides of the giving and gaining at this
So you
point.
said you were selling, that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, the
Correct,
one I'm
yeah.
selling is giving up, the one I'm keeping is gaining.
Okay.
okay.
Can you go into lot 6, you said, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Ron's got a question.
All right, Ron?
I'm a little confused, which is normal for me. The purpose of this line replacement or movement is what? I mean, you gotta have a
Why
purpose,
don't
you
you
wouldn't.
elaborate on the,
Well, the main reason I want to do it is
Yes,
because currently the property line, the protected plant area is included in 4 Old Farm Road. So if somebody was not to follow the rules and do something to that protected plant area, it's not on my property. And then it comes a matter of trying to
get the person who did the
Yeah,
violation.
you know, going back, so if it's on my property,
You
I
get,
have a little more leeway to make sure that they don't go and just clear cut it and mow it and put a shed on it or do something to that effect.
So
Does
the
that
pr-
make sense to you?
Yep.
Not everybody
So you're,
follows.
you're ultimately gonna keep it and can protect it.
Yeah, well, as much as I can. I wanted to keep the whole thing, but I could only keep half of it and stay within the 1
Yeah.
acre.
Yep. Line setback, yeah.
So, at least if I'm halfway through it, it's gonna be harder for somebody just to clear cut it, put a shed on it.
Yep.
Because they're actually on my property, not just the easement or protected plant area, conservation area.
But your access is,
There's an
Both?
easement from the main road
oh,
to get down there to mow it. But I've been accessing it through my property because I own both of them.
mm-hmm. Oh, I see it now, okay.
Yeah, and there's one over here too. Conservation. That's planned too, yeah. Yes. Yep.
Is there anyone who would like clarification on any of the map features they're looking at that I could help walk them through?
Yeah, what type of species of plants are on that, in that, do you know offhand, by chance?
I don't
don't
even
remember.
say the
It's
scientific
in
name.
the
It's like a skull
PDD.
cap or something like
Skull
that.
cap,
It was an
that's,
endangered
that's what it says.
It was
on
in a
there.
major tree or something, I forget what it was.
Flower.
Flower, that's
Oh,
what
it's
it
a
was.
It says
flower.
skull cap.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Referenced right on the plan.
Yeah.
Oh, skull cap, oh.
But, yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's right there. It's skull cap's been referenced there. Arthur Haynes and the Native Plant Trust.
It's a small flower all over the side of the Jersey Turnpike, actually. It's just one of the most northern areas they found it in when I was doing the subdivision, which is why they wanted to protect it.
Oh, okay,
Oh, it's pretty.
interesting.
How does the fire department access that fire tank?
There's a
skull
cul-de-sac
cap.
at the end of the front road.
See this?
Oh, yeah,
See right there, Tom?
the private drive,
How does he?
It's pretty.
okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty flower. Can you go over the access again? I'm looking at the map and I just don't understand.
From the cul-de-sac, there's an easement access.
Here's the
See where the
cul-de-sac.
circle is to the left of the circle? Go over to the left, you see that
So-
access?
If you see, here's our box right here.
Yeah,
This dotted line represents the easement. So the easement goes all the way to the road, so a driver
Okay,
could stop
could
here.
stop here and
then
go down
walk
this road.
Through this dotted line easement to access this box area where the flower is.
The point of the easement was just for mowing purposes. If I wasn't to live there, or somebody else could take care of it, because it's gotta be mowed twice a year.
I'm assuming that's his house.
All set.
I think, okay.
Thank you for protecting it.
Try my best. It's been a big part of my life the past couple of years.
I remember when
He lives on lot six, right?
I don't see it.
This doesn't affect the septic.
It affects nothing, it's just,
What's right here?
I can't change the property line.
So we make a motion to approve it?
Property line while I own both properties. Once I sell it, I will just work hard.
We can help approve it, so.
They have them.
So we'll just make a decision, make a motion to approve it, that's it? You don't have to sign the form too, then? That was
We'll
it?
get the Mylar drafted up,
Okay.
since we're looking at the approval just today.
Okay.
And then once the Mylar is in office, we'll coordinate with you to get a
Okay.
signature.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second?
Any discussion? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All set.
Motion to amend the agenda for subdivision Hemlock Hills.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
All in favor of adding to the agenda?
Yep.
The motion by the table? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, other new business is subdivision Hemlock Hills, 525 Burr Road and Rocky Mountain Road. We're just receiving this application only tonight.
Oh, so we can have it.
And we'll put it on the agenda for March, is it 15th or 18th? Let me take a look. What's March, Deb?
18th.
March 18th, 7 PM, room 205. All right, thank you. Under other business, Affordable Housing Subcommittee.
We were unable to meet last month because of, we didn't have a quorum. So our next meeting will be March 4th.
That happened last month, didn't it? Or your month before?
No, we were able to meet.
Month
We were
before
able to
that.
meet, but we couldn't get in the door.
Right, okay.
We've had a couple
We
of-
gotta tell the town we need keys. Anyone else want to add anything to affordable housing while we're at it and update anything?
Nope.
Next month, we are meeting with, or on our agenda, we have a developer coming in to talk about some projects that they have done in other towns. So we'll get some information that we hope we can pass on.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
I'll be at that one too, right, Alex?
Yeah, yes.
I'll come too. Let me know when it is.
All right.
I'll go too. Cool.
What
Let's
is it,
see.
March what?
March 4th, 6
4th.
o'clock.
Oh, yeah, okay.
6 o'clock room.
I don't believe there's gonna be a
208.
ZBA meeting,
Oh,
which
good.
works out great, so
Perfect.
I actually should be able to hang tight for the rest of the meeting as well.
Cool. All right, let's see, under other business streetscape review subcommittee, they didn't meet, right?
We did not meet. The next meeting will be the 24th, February 24th at 6:30.
Yeah, we're working on getting a rescheduled meeting with that one.
Okay. All right, sounds good, and then we'll get a report next month as to how we're doing. Sounds good. Let's see, under other business, IBM discussion. Jordan, my man, what do we have for that?
All right, I will start this off by saying, if anyone has remote start on their car, I'll be brief, and we should be out of here soon. It's cold, so Deb, I'm looking at you. If you want to start your car, now's the time. Okay, now that we're past that very important note. IBM, the discussion hasn't really evolved or moved forward, but within the town's, purview and our ability to react to the site, I think it does warrant, and I've talked with the first selectman about the town's appetite for potentially getting a study underway and in place with respect to what uses could be occupied at that location. Understanding across the board how we as the town need to react. Currently, the site is zoned to essentially be a large-scale headquarters. There's effectively zero opportunities across the entire state and have been zero opportunities across the state for large-scale headquarters such as this for quite some time. How the town will intentionally think about how the site will be developed will be an aspect of how it gets potentially rezoned or looked at a comprehensive sense. The study should effectively look at all use types, whether it be residential, commercial, retail, industrial, but across the board, we're looking at every opportunity and the best opportunities that that site could accomplish. It's my opinion that that's what effectively this type of study will do, and then moving forward, operating within the zoning commission's purview to address not only the goals and intention of the study as we incorporate the public as well, because that's a huge aspect of this. The last thing I think this commission or any commission that's facing off with a large-scale project like this is to really throw anything at the wall or hope that a commercial developer comes in and then try and, grab at straws and get our ducks in a row at that point. If there is a concerted effort to address exactly what that site can be to benefit the overall community and the overall town, then a plan would effectively lay that out in not so uncertain terms. So I think moving forward, it's gonna be a huge help to benefit the commissions that are tasked with addressing this, but also you're bringing the public into the conversation. And all too often, these applications come to the forefront at a public meeting, and then there's a fervor. But it really should be the public that is part of the conversation at the offset. And a plan study would really go a long way in addressing that. We ended up getting a lot of public participation with the POCD, and my goal is to hopefully have this mimic something along those lines, so we have a comprehensive understanding of what uses are looked at as highly beneficial for the town, but also what uses that specific site, because it's a very, very unique site, could accomplish. And that's effectively where I think this commission should be focusing with respect to the IBM discussion. And I'd be more than happy to start work on drafting up RFPs and things of that nature in my office to make sure that we have the documentation ready to go if we want to start putting out proposals. But other than that, the opportunity is to sit and wait for a commercial headquarters to operate within the existing zoning regulations, and you're essentially a needle in a haystack at that point.
So is it IBM turned the idea over to the town?
No, IBM, we're not in discussion with
So they can
IBM.
sell it and then we have nothing.
Correct, Rich, but if IBM sold it today, what gets developed or what gets used on the site? There's no commercial appetite for what's currently existing. So there's either an appetite for a reuse of the space, something different, multifamily, whatever the case ends up being. But a plan will essentially elaborate on all the benefits and all the drawbacks of any specific use that could go on in that site. And then the commission, being the zoning commission, can at that time respond in kind and properly zone that very large parcel to meet a use that not only the town is comfortable with, but perfectly slots into that site.
When we did this study for Southbury Training School, there's a template for that that we used then with public input, every single commission in town. And then we went for put it out to bid.
We did the workshops, like the public came in and did,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really,
That would be ideal.
A
Yeah.
number of them, yeah. And
Has the
then
town sat down
input
with
from
IBM
every
and
Yeah.
board and
talked to them
commission
about,
in town.
future use of it
It can
and our help in that
have
and with them, or how
unbelievable
were we at
effect
with
on
that?
town.
Yes and no. So Rich just asked the question if the town has sat down with IBM and addressed any ideas or thoughts on their end. Myself, Jeff, Economic Development Director, the assessor, various individuals heading up various departments in town, did a walkthrough of the site. We were walked through by one of the managers there and effectively just understood the property a bit more, understood how things have been decommissioned, understood the existing conditions of the site. It's pretty bare bones. A lot of the infrastructure has been removed. The hydrogen fuel cell has been long gone. The sewer system has been decommissioned for a number of years. So it was really just understanding the site a bit better. Some questions were answered relative to, hey, what could happen if a data center went in here? Well, here are the infrastructure drawbacks to if a data center went in here. And that's effectively what I'd love the plan to address. Because if we're asking the questions, okay, this would be great for a data center, but we learned that the infrastructure of the overall grid system can't support that. All right, that puts a kibosh on a data center idea that could potentially be viable and there could be an appetite in the market for, but the overall grid can't support it. So it's really understanding where the appetite is, where the site can be feasible, and how it can mesh in with our community being what it is. And a plan would go a long way in pinpointing that, or at least giving a couple different directions so that maybe there could be a flexible zone that's then devised, or we go the route of PD, or whatever the case ends up being. But at least we have an understanding of all the drawbacks of potential uses and all the benefits of other uses.
Is
When
that
would you-
hypothetical, what you were just talking about, data center doesn't support? Is
That
hypothetical?
was spoken
that
to us
true?
by the manager at
Oh,
IBM,
okay.
because they've looked at, Kyndryl was a data center type use, and they were only able to operate on a smaller capacity, because the question arose, hey, what if Kyndryl is able to accommodate the whole space and kind of operate in a larger capacity? And that was the answer that we received relative to the grid, not specific to Kyndryl.
When do you anticipate the first step towards doing this?
With respect to a plan, Ron, or an
Yes,
actual?
Getting it out, to-
Study.
deciding on who's gonna do the plan.
So deciding on who's gonna do the plan would come after the request for proposal goes out. So I would have to end up drafting up the request for proposal,
Right.
elaborate on all the intricacies of how we're gonna be asking these things be organized and presented to us. There would likely be, and I'm going through this right now with the zoning commission with the regulation rewrite, there would likely be a selection committee that this commission would operate within or choose different individuals to operate within. And then through that, all the bids would be opened, all the proposals would be read, and then the selection committee would disseminate based on a selection criteria that would be included with the RFP as to who we ended up going with moving forward. And from there, we would end up working in concert with that group to get a proposal or a plan drafted up for this site.
My question is, when are you gonna start the process?
Of writing the RFP, Ron, I would start it as soon as I got the blessing of this commission.
At what point then are you going to get do you plan on getting the input from all the other boards and commissions?
Once the RFP is drafted, I will be communicating with this commission on, one, the content of the RFP before it got sent out, and only at the point that this commission was comfortable with the actual document would it be decided to move forward. That's how it was done with the planning, or the zoning commission. Once we understood the parameters of the RFP and were comfortable with it, as well as the selection criteria being either a point system or a merit-based system or whatever the case is, then essentially it gets its approval by the commission and then gets sent out. And we start setting the timeline for the proposals to be received before we close the door and only move forward with the proposals as we've taken them in.
Instead of budget and a timeline.
So do you see it as a residential opportunity?
Honestly, so.
Looked at it when you were there, does it look like it would be?
From a residential opportunity, multifamily, the overall size, let's say 1 million square feet got turned into residential, there's huge implications on the entire town if that were to occur. But I myself don't know the details or the data. So that's where a clear plan should be drafted up. So if the overall appetite is for multifamily, knowing what that does to schools, knowing what that does to emergency services, knowing what that does to roads and infrastructure, and everything else that bleeds off of one decision. And that's really what I'd like the plan to elaborate on, so that once we understand all the drawbacks and benefits of various different uses, it's a massive site. So moving forward with anything needs to be done very intentionally. And having a plan in place would go a long way in assisting with that intention.
But there could be multiple uses also.
Of course.
Yeah.
Would the plan be that IBM would be a partner or something with the town to do this, or would the town want to purchase it? or
IBM's heading out and they're
They're going.
They're gonna
they're-
vacate the building, just leave it empty?
What's their occupancy now?
0.
Zero.
Minus,
Oh.
is
They're
Kindle
gonna
still?
give it to the
No,
town?
Kindle's
thought
now
they had gone-
headquartered in the city.
Yeah.
How many acres is it?
230, is it?
Plus, yeah, because they have a secondary lot that's about 30 acres or so.
Yeah.
So development could be controlled, unless it's sold off as a parcel to a
Any-
corporation.
Mhm.
Zoning could control as well the size of residential.
Right, and right now
Building for
zoning
development.
has controlled the site to
Yeah.
date. That R60C has effectively controlled the site to be what it is today.
Yeah.
We now need to react as we move forward into the future, because IBM no longer exists in Southbury. It was great while we had them, and, you know, Southbury as a town benefited immensely, but it's time to move into the future and figure out what the next 30 years is gonna look like, and intentionally planning for even the fallout of that 30 years. That's where I'd like the plan to be, so we really understand the knock-on effects of any type of development. And I'm not pointing in any direction, because
Right.
frankly, who knows what it could be, what the appetite of the economy is. It could be 5 years before we're actually, you know, receiving applications for this, and we can be looking at a different market economy at
It
that
could be
time.
another Quarry Walk, you know, with all that kind of multi-use and residential mix.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what I was
I'd
thinking.
caution against something that is so expansive and commercial, because you have a Main Street South corridor that's precious. And the more you pull away from that, the potential for eviscerating it exists. And that's the last thing we would want to do. The same concern exists with the training school. If a Quarry Walk opened up in the training school and all of our economy ended up pulling in that direction, how many units on Main Street South now sit vacant? And then we have
That's
a
a good point.
bigger problem on our hands, because we've invested so much in that Main Street South streetscape and all the infrastructure therein, and we enjoy it for that exact purpose. That's got to be protected, and as we look at a development like this, we need to be cautious of those things, because a lot of work has been done thus
Yeah,
far.
makes sense.
Those cautions that you just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
will those be expressed prior to putting anything out to bid for someone to give us ideas?
So whoever's chosen will have a lot of interaction with this commission. They'll have to, completely work with this commission to determine the direction that they want to go, the information that they need to receive, how this commission wants the plan drafted and to be displayed as. So to your point, Ron, having all that information included in the plan would be a point that you would be standing up for. And the proposer or client that we end up choosing for the proposal
Would have to meet those.
would have to meet those requirements.
So,
But the way I see it is, we hold the cards at this point.
I was just gonna say that.
It's zoned specifically for what it used to be.
Yep.
If we don't change the zoning regulations at all,
Mhm.
it becomes
Same as it is.
Vacant.
It is
Yeah.
empty property.
Correct.
So we dictate what we're gonna open it up for. So if we don't want a big retail
Mhm.
establishment, then we just zone it in that particular.
And that would, the
Fashion.
proposal would carry that sentiment, because this commission would be involved every step of the way. So if the idea was, well, do you want a major shopping center? The answer would hopefully be, well, no, this is what we have for a regional shopping center, and it's our main street, and we'd like to preserve that as best we can. If the proposer ends up coming with data that supports the opposite of what I'm saying, then by all means, present that information to the commission.
Always listen, but we can still
Right.
Could still
Precisely.
say no.
steer the ship.
Precisely, yeah, because you're right, we hold all the cards, but to that point, we could hold them to our chests and nothing could happen ever on that site, and that's that is a
A
reality.
missed opportunity, though.
Of course, I would,
With Southbury Training School, we've done all the work and we still don't, we're nowhere.
that's a little different with
So
respect
I'm
to the
just a little
state.
confused on a couple things. So how does the town, because town people have lost us at the first meeting.
I'm sorry?
Why are we looking at a property that we don't own? Well, did they give us the rights to the property? Are they giving it to the town? I don't
Nope.
understand why we would do this unless we have that right.
Because as an R60C, it's effectively unusable. So the town now has to respond with how we would like the property used and what the property's best use case would be,
But
because
they
you,
own it still though. I'm confused.
Yeah, but Rich, where I would caution is, let's say IBM negotiates with a developer.
Yeah.
The developer has a completely different vision. They come in on one of our meetings and drop it, and you get awestruck. But you don't really look at all the implications to it. You kind of get dazzled by the initial application.
That
and,
part I understand.
and they're
I'm
still
just-
gonna
you know,
ask
I
you to
don't
zone
wanna-
change.
Dive into something head first.
No matter
without-
what. And there will be requesting zone changes, there will be requesting regulation changes, and all of those things are then gonna be reactive on the town's
So
position.
right now, the property belongs to the town or
No.
IBM?
IBM.
IBM.
Okay, so eventually, if, you said they're walking away,
Mhm.
who's taking care of the property?
The property owner, they still
A
have.
property maintenance person will make sure that the
And they're
walls
still
don't
paying the
fall in.
Taxes and all that, and.
Yeah, they
the whole
still
nine
pay
yards.
the property
Right,
tax.
so
and the-
then we get all this plan done and everything, and like Bob said, developer comes along and drops the bomb, and we have our own plan of what we like there. At that point, we still don't own the property, IBM
So
does.
the intention of the plan shouldn't be
Yeah.
draft a plan and then wait for development.
It's just a
The
step.
plan should be what the town now needs to do as far as zoning to modify the site and then rezone the site. Regardless of IBM currently existing there, because they're vacant, they're not operating in the capacity that they were originally approved. It's just a freestanding
All right,
structure.
so then we rezone it to what we think is right, and then IBM turns around and does it on their own. We're good with that.
IBM would then have to market based on the new zoning, but currently they can't market to anyone.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, in the future, but they would still own us, they would be actually the people doing the developing, because they own the building. and the
IBM would
property,
be selling to a developer.
so We'd hope.
Yeah.
But we hope, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanna
Yeah,
make
because
sure.
IBM
Okay.
has alluded to walking
Okay.
away from the property.
Right, that's fine, I just wanna make sure, okay.
And the state still owns Southbury Training School too.
Right.
That's why we don't, yeah.
But we have the first right to refusal when that time comes, and then it goes to a
It's a
nonprofit.
study for all the options.
Yeah.
But with respect to the differences of the training school and IBM, this was essentially office use. The
Yep.
implication of environmental remediation on that site in comparison is much more reduced.
Perfect.
That's why it's a
So
study.
the opportunity for the site to be rehabilitated to something as a tax generating asset for the town in 5 years' time is feasible. that is not feasible with respect to the training school. We still have
Right, we
a
have nothing, right.
10, 15, 20-plus year vision with respect to responding to anything on that site.
Yeah.
And we actually don't know what that timeline is. They are vacating the site, it's empty, and now it's time to figure out what goes next. And that's what this plan, I think, should end up doing.
I do have
As
a
our
question.
number one taxpayer.
I'm sorry.
As our number one, okay.
But we're not gonna give up on trying to get a commercial replacement, are we? We're just gonna, I mean, is there
Well, I
a
think
way
that's
we
probably one of
could?
the options, right?
But can we kind of try to work with the state, the Department of Environment, Economic Development, to try to see if we get somebody in there? I mean, a commercial property would be the best. They pay taxes, they have a higher, you know?
I just want to make sure we're not confusing the training school
No,
conversation.
no, I'm talking about IBM.
So with respect to IBM, it's currently zoned some form of office commercial. It would be my expectation that that might stay the same moving forward. However, if a planning study was generated and ultimately the best use was for multifamily or a cluster development or a major subdivision that went on the entire 200-acre property, if that ended up being the best case for the town and the plan dictated that and had supporting information to detail that, then it would be up to the commissions at that time to review that plan and then determine for themselves if rezoning for multifamily or under purely residential moving forward is how that property best gets used by, or the property is best used within the town. It may get changed, and then ultimately, we learn that there's no developer appetite for what gets proposed. But the intention of a plan would be to also avoid that.
Oh, I
because there
understand the
would be
whole idea
market-
of the plan, but I like the idea of let's try to focus on a commercial.
Who's looking for 1 million square
Well,
feet of
I was
space?
just
We
gonna
don't
say,
know.
Connecticut.
We don't know. That's the sad
Yeah,
part.
nobody's
because-
looking for that, and they're not
I
gonna look
know.
in
That's
big
Connecticut for
money.
it.
That's the sad part, because
Yeah,
nobody's
that-
come to
that'd be it.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Well,
Nobody would come here.
And that's a lot-
but
distribution
also
center, right? Who
industries
else would want it?
change. I mean, things are more virtual, so you don't
True.
need to have so much centralization. I mean, then that means you're only drawing talent from your zip code. I mean, you decentralize your talent, you could have the best talent anywhere in the country.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but there are states around this country that are still growing commercially.
When there's,
look
where
at-
there's manufacturing or resources or,
No, like,
that's supported.
United Airlines is moving out of Chicago, they're going to Denver.
okay.
There's other places that are going to North Carolina. I mean, there could be, possibly. I'm not saying not to go through the
We're not
development plan.
ruling it out, it's
No, no,
just
no,
we have to
right.
open up our options.
I'm
Right,
sure it'd be
right,
one of
right.
the options
Yeah.
on a plan, and it would have to be, I mean, it'd be crazy
Yeah.
not to.
And John, I think you would find a lot of camaraderie with the idea that in a perfect world, this is still a major commercial headquarters location. That's what it was originally intended to be.
Yeah, it's right off 84.
The reality of the situation that we're under, and Connecticut on a broad scale is under, and that's the research that we're pulling in and trying to disseminate to make the decision that a plan is ultimately the best course of action, is because that's the signaling on the wall that we're getting. There are no headquarter corporations of this size that are occupying these spaces. We see, the Summit in Danbury struggling to hold on to their, handful of tenants that occupy large areas, but Odyssey just moved out of Union Carbide. And there will probably be more that end up stepping away from that as it transfers property hands once again. They're twice the size of the IBM facility, but that's not to say that we're not dealing with a similar situation here.
Yeah.
And it would be the design of the plan to pull in a lot of that outsized data from the overall market and the overall state to determine what are the appetites? What could this feasibly be? Because we could sit here and say, let's just wait for another headquarters. Let's step back, and it could be 15 years of that site sitting vacant before the economy shifts and all of a sudden Connecticut's looked at as being a viable place because everyone's in New York City, because that's what generated this fervor in the first place. They wanted more rural areas, and they pulled all these corporation headquarters and started building in, rural Connecticut just over the border.
But in 15 to 20 years, what would the infrastructure be like? If it sat vacant?
Union Carbide has been a horrible disaster because they had, I think this is true, but electrified their rebar, and then the power went out and all their concrete ended up just spalling and becoming an absolute mess. Not to mention the areas of that building that have turned into essentially homeless you know, campments, because that's what ends up happening with a lot of these large-scale developments as they deteriorate and fall into squalor. And it should be the intention that that doesn't happen here in Southbury.
Is that a reporter?
The Army Engine Plant in Stratford has been sitting vacant. I mean, it's 80, 90 acres on the water, next to an airport, off access of Route 8 and 95, been sitting empty since the 80s.
Is that right?
It's our site is incredible. It's incredible because of the planning and the intention that went into it in the 70s. Let's make on and off access. Let's avoid interaction with our major road systems. It's all state roads and they have an on and off ramp going east and west. They are effectively screened on all sides. There's maybe one area on 84 that you can just see a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
Just a glimpse.
Yeah.
They were incredibly intentional to not affect the surrounding residential area and to operate uniquely on that parcel in a way that was expansive but fit into the rural character of Southbury. That should be how we're trying to move forward, but the idea that let's hope that this just gets occupied is really, really challenging. And I understand your
No, I
sentiment.
know.
Have we got assurances from IBM that they will maintain the building so that it doesn't fall into a distressed?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
To
we
a
have
minimal
those.
sense, they are going to maintain the building and make sure that pipes don't burst and
That's what I
security
mean,
is
yeah.
maintained and on a very, simple level.
Okay.
Jordan, from just an in-house question, so if we go ahead with this plan, is it looked at from both a planning aspect and a zoning aspect?
It would have to be.
Okay.
Because the planning aspect would be the overall community and influence and integration. And the zoning aspect would be how do the words achieve the
I
intended
didn't
goal.
wanna do one study for then zoning to say, okay, now we've gotta do
We
another,
need a planning
to see
study.
how it specifically affects zoning.
No, let's be
That's-
smart with the money we spend. I totally
That's
understand.
why we get input from all
Everybody,
all
yeah.
the boards and commissions. yeah.
Absolutely.
What's the impact on our budget now that it's not occupied? That's
Oh,
our
our town budget, you mean?
Taxpayer, yeah.
So,
again.
the town is very fiscally sound.
Yeah.
They've put a lot of the money that has been generated from IBM away.
But the income now, how is that affected?
It's reduced, and the assessor would be the one to generate the exact numbers for you. I would hate to speculate in this forum and just
Sure.
throw something at the wall and get it wrong.
All right, that sounds good.
We're not forming a plan, we're doing a study.
Correct.
It's different.
And I'm happy to get to work on an RFP. Obviously, this commission will be heavily involved with exactly what goes in. I'll bring it before you for draft sense, and we can piecemeal it and address anything that needs changing. But I would need your blessing at this junction to move forward with
Do you need a
that
motion?
next step.
I'll make
It
a-
would help.
I'll
I
Make
would
a
say-
motion.
Everybody.
Thank you,
I'll
Rob.
second the motion.
Thank you, Rob.
All in favor for the motion?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions?
Just out of curiosity, can somebody tell me what the motion is?
We're to put a plan in place for an RFP.
For an
To
RFP.
start looking at
Okay,
ideas and then
so
form a
you'll write it
committee
up
to talk about those options.
Yep.
for
Right.
somebody, voting
The
for
selection
something I
committee?
haven't
Yeah.
seen.
I think at least 2 to 3 members of this commission would be on the selection committee, possibly as well as some members from zoning, maybe EDC. You generally want to keep those relatively small, so for the zoning regulation rewrite, we ended up choosing 3 members, myself and Dan Colton, to review the proposals. It may be, given that this is more of a broad scope and touches on a lot of different departments, that we decide the selection committee should be more variable, but we can drill down on the specifics of that at a later date.
Sounds like a plan.
Exactly.
It will be.
Okay.
Thank you, Jordan.
Jordan, thank you
Thank you, Jordan.
for putting up with all our questions.
Happy to.
All right, let's see, meeting minutes. Nance, since I wasn't here, I can't,
Right. I had no additions or corrections. Anybody?
I wasn't here, so
Motion
I
to
gotta
accept
abstain.
as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I've got to
I'll abstain.
because I wasn't here.
Me too, since I wasn't here.
Ron and Rich abstain. Thank you.
Okay. Any other business properly be brought before the commission? Anybody, anything?
Yes, we still need
We're looking.
another member.
So Nancy, the regional planning group has been disbanded. It no longer exists.
I meant our commission, not COG.
Okay, good. I just,
Yeah,
I thought
okay.
maybe you were touching on that, but
I
at
probably
least
would
that
be.
updates you on that.
Thank you.
Sure.
We're not the only commission looking for people, unfortunately. There's a lot of vacancies throughout. So that's the reason why we're having a little more of a difficulty finding people.
So we need a permanent and an alternate? Is that
No, we
right?
just need 2 alternates. Yeah, right, we need 2 more alternates, that's it. I think, I can remember right, or 1 and 1, yeah, I think so. I'll double check. Yeah,
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned.
Everybody stay warm.
Yeah. Avoid the ice. Boy.
There will be summer eventually.